Good day and salutations everyone, Sweeps is back and we're here to have some fun. Problem players are something that everyone has to deal with every once in a while. Sometimes the problem player doesn't realize they're a problem until it's too late. It could be main character syndrome or just be communication issues. The best thing to do is to confront the player outside the game and address the issues front on. Unfortunately, this advice often goes unheard of until it's too late and the problem player has caused way too many problems. Today's story is about one of these problem players where they just can't stop backstabbing the party. Enjoy, my friends.
Could you stop betraying the party? For 5 minutes!
So this one isn't quite as crazy as some other stories on here, but it's affected several of my IRL friendships, so I think it's worth posting. Names changed, of course, not a throwaway because I'm pretty sure the participants aren't on here. TLDR, Edgelord player repeatedly betrays the party, uses crappy role-playing as an excuse. DM who wants to Game of Thrones it, not only allows it, but encourages it. Oh joy. Our cast includes me, D&D veteran and usually forever DM. Bob, DM, writer, also longtime D&D vet, and usually forever DM too. Matt, new player, plays the lovable idiot barbarian, husband to the problem player. Kylie, problem player, edgelord who uses RP to justify always getting her way, threatens to quit repeatedly. Meg, vengeance paladin who tries to rein things in and makes it so much worse. Harry, dwarf cleric, gruff, 10, dating the druid. Vic, druid and flower child, really just wanted to be friends with everyone. And 2 relatively unimportant ranger players who came and went. Aw, I like rangers. Years ago, a bunch of work friends decided to play D&D. Me and Bob were old hat at it, where the rest of the party had never really played and were really interested. Bob volunteered to DM and poured his heart and soul into world building, giving us each countries to pick from, a detailed backstory, you name it. It's everything I wished my first campaign had for real. Myself, Matt, Ranger 1, and Harry all came together, and the first story was a race to prevent a murder complete with a sabotaged airship, a pact with the devil, the Ranger living up to every bard stereotype ever as the face character. We were having an absolute blast. I ended up retiring my monk for a battle master fighter to play a general who was more involved with the plot as we moved into Arc 2. Matt asked if he could invite his wife. She gets pretty into character creation and makes a half-elf rogue with a sword past. Every time anyone tries to be friendly to her, she ignores them or brushes them off since we wouldn't understand what she's been through. She also spends most of the sessions on her phone. Oh joy! We sally forth into a proper dungeon crawl. At one point in the dungeon, a trap gets triggered, and my friend has his alignment forcibly shifted to lawful evil. The DM trusts me enough to roleplay it instead of treating it like a mind control and how he intended. We end up departing from the dungeon with a new goal in mind: raising an army and taking over. The DM loved it. He openly encouraged us not to tell him our plan, so he as the other nations could metagame plan for it. We would meet in private and plan. We were so invested, and when it came time to siege the capital, we were given a warning that a mole had infiltrated our ranks by the DM. We weren't sure if this was just in-character fluff or out of character, but we stuck to it. The invasion was a trap. We baited into a city that had the gates sealed behind us, and the whole thing lit ablaze. The party almost TPK'd and the general died. Only the barbarian and the rogue managed to escape, with the rogue almost unscathed and the barbarian at 0 as he made it to the relief force. I re-rolled again, this time playing a half-orc hexblade whose ancestral axe spoke to him, telling him to unify the barbarian tribes. We had another couple we were friends with, almost all of us still hooked on at this point. Kylie started to get worse though. Vocally complained that if she didn't get loot or wasn't the one getting kills. Plus Meg the Paladin, she did a wonderful job of propping her up, always buffing her so she could do better, but in character the half-elf was still cold, distant, even to the barbarian she'd been traveling with for years, in-game and out, always dismissive. And in the third arc we find the tomb of an ancient goddess of destruction, resolute to prevent her artifacts from being used lest they go unchecked, even if it would turn the tide of the war. Meg and Kylie started to butt heads more and more. Meg wanted to be her friend. Kylie wasn't having it. She tried to encourage them to hang outside the table and Kylie just stopped talking to everyone outside of D&D. Matt convinced us she was just going through a lot with school. Well, going through a lot with school doesn't really excuse her abandoning us during the final boss with the tomb to stealth away, find an enchanted dagger with the power world kill bound to it, and using it on the paladin and threatening all the rest of us with it before fleeing for backstory reasons. At this point, only the DM had seen her backstory and he just kept enabling it. There's some weird choices in the writing in this story. Meg and her partner quit unsurprisingly. We moved on to a new setting, anything far from where we were. Obligatory pirate campaign time!
To begin their journey of piracy.
A lot of us had fun with ship mechanics, getting used to some homebrewed ballistas and cannons. It was at this point that Harry joined us as yet another new player, but he axed for a living so he dove right in. Once we got to totaling not Tortuga, Kylie's rogue decided she wanted to be a pirate queen, and had all of us blacklisted on the island so we'd have to fight to overthrow the establishment. We'd had enough. When my orc kicked the bucket in a heroic last stand, his best friend the barbarian and her husband finally stood up to her, berating her soundly in character combat, sparing her and marooning her as an attempt at a truce rather than outright killing her. Cue the waterworks, screaming and her saying that we all hated her and she was going to quit and we'd never see Matt again either. Trying to salvage the group, I offered it to DM a few sessions. We had a lot of fun during them. There were trolls, a circus with a deck of many things, and even a touching funeral where the daughter of the general finally was able to lay her father to rest. Notably, during my tenure as DM, Kylie rarely touched her phone. Bob was ready to go again. He wove Harry's backstory in and we were looking for a noble scion's missing father. Kylie came around as a mute grave cleric, taking care of a leper colony. She commuted entirely by, you guessed it, texting directly to the DM. It went alright for a while. The group for the most part had good chemistry and Harry's girlfriend even came to join. She was one of the best love and peace and let's be friends chaotic good base characters I've ever seen. We were set to have a good adventure with us discovering the father was setting up a resistance to overthrow the kingdom. There was intrigue and multiple sessions without combat, but in a really good way. And then we found him. She used the biggest spell she had to one-shot him and said her god told her to.
Betrayal. Unfriggin' believable.
I haven't talked to the majority of the players of that group in about 3 months. I don't know what leverage she held over the DM, but he did end up confiding in me that she was regularly basically RPing her own adventure on the side with him by text, and that anytime her rogue stealthed away, she was having some major main character moments that literally none of the rest of us, her husband included. It was clear after talking to her multiple times and asking her to be cooperative with the group that she just wasn't going to participate. It's a real shame because in the end most of the group was fantastic, but one bad player and a DM who allowed it crashed it for everyone else. It is amazing how a single person can sour a good time, and that's what we're looking at here. And not just a bad player, but possibly a very submissive DM too. Guys, I know it should be obvious at this point if you've been watching D&D videos, but if you're in a game with a player who's constantly getting away with bad behavior, you should really talk to the DM because, yeah, Kylie is the problem player here, but the fact that the DM is felicitating these bad actions of Kylie is when you need to talk to the DM about this. Now, if it happened once or twice, you could chalk it up to a mistake, but if it keeps happening again and again, then you need to be able to talk to the DM about this stuff. But here's something to consider, and that's hindsight. Sure, reading stories like this that contain a number of events seems bad when you look at it, but we need to remember there's a number of campaigns talked about here, so in the moment you might not catch these sorts of things, but you can still make sure you have to keep an eye out for this. So my advice is for you guys to be vigilant and keep an eye out on behaviors of your other players. And that's all from me today. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks again. Sweeps out.